as you've heard, on how smart technologies can transform or possibly transform the hospitality industry. I'm your host. My name is Louis Nau, and I'm a software developer from Lasaka, based in Durban, and I work on the enterprise system, which is our point of sale solution for restaurants and businesses. Companies can manage their POS, their stock, staff, and their customer engagement from a single system. Now, hospitality has always been about people and experiences, but technology is increasingly shaping how these experiences are delivered, from how restaurants run their operations to how they connect with their customers. To explore this topic, I'm joined by two speakers who bring valuable experience from very different perspectives and fields in this industry. Firstly, we've got Kagiso Kahole. He has spent over a decade driving growth and innovation for global technology companies across Africa, including Starlink's expansion at SpaceX. And he also previously served as GM for the Sub-Saharan division of Uber. Next to me is Sean Candy, and he works closely with hospitality operators and brings practical insights into how technology platforms, from the point of sale into integrated management systems, can help restaurants run more efficiently and be more profitable. Kagiso, Sean, welcome, and thanks for joining us. Oh, right. Yeah, please give it up.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining us, man.
Right. Kagiso, the first question is for you. Why don't we have Starlink in South Africa yet? No, just kidding. Right, so you've got an impressive CV and you've worked for quite a lot of different tech companies, large-scale technology and market expansion. So from your perspective, how is smart technology reshaping the hospitality industry as a whole?
Yeah, so one of the things that really got me really interested about the space is that whenever you get into certain, restaurants, etc., you find that, sometimes you're dealing with 10-year-old, 20-year-old, 30-year-old software and systems. But the reality of this space, whether it's around the payment side of things, whether it's around how people interact and transact, a lot of that has moved on and it's rapidly evolving. And what we've seen as a big opportunity, bringing in businesses like Garb into this Lasaka brand, is the ability for us to build an ecosystem, really make it simple and easy for, owners to start, seeing the full picture of their business. So before you used to only see what's happening in the point of sale system, it didn't talk to what is happening on your card machine. You didn't know what is happening with cash as well. But now being able to bring all those functionality into one cohesive experience has been really critical. And I think as we move into the future, that's going to be what is expected going forward by customers and merchants alike.
Now the next question is for Sean, and this ties into Kagiso's question. So from the ground level, on operations level, what does smart technology actually look like on a day-to-day business, day-to-day level for a business?
Yeah. I just want to start off by sort of defining what smart technology is, So, gone are the days when you can just think of the restaurants and what the restaurant's needs are, It's rapidly sort of progressed to what the restaurant's customers' needs are as well, right? So, a lot of that is sort of shaping smart technology. And I think it's critical to point out that, technology, there's technology and there's smart technology, and you're meant to see the benefits of that technology, right? So if you implement technology, there's meant to be positive outcomes off the back of that, right? So, in the restaurant world, we're talking about, getting more profitable, right? We're talking about operating more efficiently, right? And we're talking about improving their customers' experience, right? So the customer experience has been a massive sort of focus over the years, and not just in hospitality, guys. The customer is the focus for all industries at the moment. So whether we're talking about an easier way for a patron to pay, whether we're talking about an easier way for a patron to navigate a menu digitally and make a payment and push an order in. It's all progressing rapidly. But yeah, it's all about sort of making restaurants more efficient and unlocking sort of better customer experiences at the end of the day.
Right. So now if we look a little bit wider, so Kagiso, moving to an African continental perspective, what do you say to that? Do you see hospitality businesses in our region adopting smart technologies? And what opportunities does it present for operators in Africa?
So the reality of it is that you find that certain markets outside of South Africa are actually far more advanced in terms of transacting digitally. You look at what has happened in Kenya in terms of mobile money. You go to a 5-star restaurant and you're paying with your mobile wallet. So it's really important that the technology that underpins those operations also embraces that. So what we've seen, some of our partners across Zambia and Zimbabwe are also here, and what they've seen is just this hunger for adoption of these technologies. If you move from, sometimes you look at Africa as one big, homogeneous area, but the reality
One
is
country.
that the requirements in neighboring countries are so different and so equally onerous that if you're expanding and you're trying to see your business going further than just South Africa, you need a partner that's able to actually take you across there. Simple things like receipts, formats, using multi-currency. Those are the things that actually add headaches to merchants instead of actually, enabling their business. And that's where, solutions like we have. So as I was saying, the requirements when you move from one market to the other are very different, whether what the taxman wants, exactly. So underpinning your solution and what you choose is really important, because the way your business is going to expand is highly dependent on the flexibility of the solutions that you have. So the hunger and embrace actually of technology outside of South African borders are actually in some parts actually a lot higher. We see our solutions being used outside of even a traditional quick service restaurant, being used in retail, being used in even large format retailers as well. So I'm actually really excited about the opportunity that the rest of Africa presents for us.
What you said about how the needs are different in different countries compared to South Africa, and that is quite a good segue into my question for Sean. So many people think point of sale software is just a tool, but that role has evolved. So how's it? Why and how has it become a central hub for managing your restaurant or your operation?
Good question there. So, funny enough, I was having this conversation with someone from the corporate world, the other day. And I was trying to explain to them that, it's not just a cash register that the guys can, ring up stuff and push through the kitchen. And I was trying to equate it to them in an analogy that sort of made sense, So if you're from the corporate world, corporate businesses run on CRMs and they run on ERPs. It's essentially what point of sale is to a restaurateur, right? It's the core, it's the foundation of running their entire business end to end. And I'm talking about not just sort of ringing up and doing cash up and cash management at the end of the night. It's dealing with suppliers. It's sort of doing cost price analysis. It happens all the time. Restaurants deal with sort of perishable items. So it's not stock that can sit on the shelf for endless amounts of years. So it becomes critical, to know your order levels and to, if the supplier's out, who's my next cheapest supplier that I can purchase from, because bottom lines are a massive sort of pressure for restaurants. So it really is the foundation, hey, from, ordering stock through to recipes, constructing your stock and how that sort of looks from an inventory aspect, managing the day-to-day operations, ringing up items, pushing through to kitchens or pizza sections, etc. So it really is the sort of lifeblood of the restaurants. Believe me, we know, if a point of sale goes down, the restaurateur's sort of whole business sort of falls apart, right? So, robust sort of rock solid solutions at the foundation is a critical sort of component in it. But it really is the sort of lifeblood of the restaurant, Louis,
So this one's for Kagiso again. So obviously technology is important and making it the lifeblood of your company. But what are the barriers to adoption? What do you think are the biggest barriers restaurants face when adopting technology, smart technology, and how can they overcome it?
So practically, sometimes we get into a new restaurant and they're using, legacy software. They've invested in hardware over the years, and the reality is moving to a cloud native, point of sale system like we offer requires you to sometimes update your hardware, and making that investment case is actually probably the biggest barrier that we encounter day to day. And what we have found that is quite important is to actually explain the value of making that investment. It's not that spending a few thousand rands on a new a new PC is a burden. It's actually about encapsulating what bringing a cloud first solution how it changes your business. Sean was talking about how back in the day, your POS goes off, that means there's no business that day.
All things down. Yeah.
And what we've managed to do now, by moving to a solution that is more modern, that is more relevant for today's business, is to allow you to have that redundancy, and that not just redundancy with us, redundancy within your store, that even if one point of sale has an issue, the other ones are able to carry on business going forward.
Transacting.
Those are the little things that make a difference. Some of the softer elements that sometimes you don't see is, for example, the number of support calls that you actually make.
100%.
Right?
100%.
Sometimes we have to go back to our merchants now and say, hi, do you remember us? We're still around. And that's because we're able to now proactively see problems. We're able to proactively use tools like artificial intelligence on the point of sale to enable your cashiers, your service men and women, to be able to actually solve their own problems right up front.
Yep.
And that's something that we weren't able to do previously.
100%. So, yeah, it's a valid point about the support, right? We've got those numbers. We've looked at those numbers, and it's not even is it really the case? It's 100% the case. It's less sort of support intensive, and that old legacy it's a server-based system. It's what a lot of the legacy POS. It's not just GARP. That's the way legacy POS sort of works across the board, right? So another big one with the sort of cloud solution is the information's instantly at your fingertips. We got restaurateurs now that, as a joke, on a Sunday they're sitting around their pool and they're doing GLVs around the pool on a Sunday. Those are things you could never do before, without cloud. So the sort of benefits are endless, I must say.
Yeah. And you actually don't want your customer to have to contact you, because then they've got a problem. You actually want to anticipate those needs and
absolutely
be proactive. So, Sean, you've actually answered your own next question already, so we can move on. So back to Kagiso. So we're back to everything's connected and one centralized system. So we've got all these wonderful tools for companies: online ordering, digital payments, loyalty programs, delivery platforms. So how important is it that these systems work together as a connective system?
So I like to look at it in different lenses. The first one is what the kids say these days, aesthetics, right? So gone are the days where your counter is cluttered with a printer,
a Mr. D tablet,
Uber tablet, a Mr. D tablet, a barcode scanner,
printer,
two tablets. That is all gone, and that's what we should be looking forward to. So this is around making sure that you spend so much time looking and planning how you fit a shop, how you put forward your brand. And the last thing you want is for technology to be invasive
and dictate what your store setup should be is almost dictated by that complication. It's a real world problem, man.
So from that lens, the simplicity that it brings is incredible. And this is whether
Yeah.
you've got your own coffee shop, independent coffee shop, or you're a chain of restaurants across the country. This is absolutely critical. The second piece, the other lens, is from a back office perspective.
Yeah.
If you've seen cash up at the end of the day, you've had a long shift, and now there's staff transportation waiting outside,
It's
and you've got Susie trying to finish up her cash up for the day. That is a frustrating experience and a frustrating end of day. A lot of entrepreneurs also even avoid doing some of that
Yep.
work. So that connectedness, that simplicity, that streamlining of the user experience becomes tangible. Where people after a long shift are able to get home
Yeah.
on time. And as an owner, is just having your finger on the pulse. If you're managing more than one location, it's almost impossible to keep traveling. And I think
Yeah.
that drains the energy and gets your focus away from serving your customers and back again onto how
That's
to
it,
manage your take. And that's where the ecosystem is really powerful in that sense.
Circling back, because it's a real world problem, and I think will sort of ring true with a lot of restaurateurs. If you are all restaurateurs in the audience, cash up. Let me tell you what, it's one of the number one sort of time consuming things. And to me, what doesn't get enough sort of hype is integrated payments. I promise you. So, I mean, restaurateurs in the old days, standalone payments, you got to add up every single credit card slip at the end of the night, balance it, you forget halfway through. We're talking hundreds of slips here, right? Integrated payments, it's instant. It is right 100% of the time. There's no finger problems when you're going across to a standalone device and you forget a decimal place and other restaurants out of pocket. It's 100% accurate. It's 100% done for you already. There's no recon needed whatsoever. So to me, I mean, integrated payments is probably the most exciting thing. And it happens in many sort of scenarios. In the quick service environment, we're talking about integrated payments at the till lane, right? But in the sit-down environment, we're talking about integrated payments with a mobile device that's integrated to POS. You can place an order on that device. You can do a take a payment on that device. And it's just sort of, to me, it's just so exciting. I just don't think there's enough hype in the industry at the moment about integrated payments. And that's just one example, Yeah.
No, that's well said. So my next question would be, what practical things can people do to run more efficiently and be profitable? Because we mentioned it earlier that it's the
Yeah.
goal of smart
Yeah.
technology. So what practical things
Yeah.
can they do?
It's a good one, and I want to piggyback off those discussions, right? We'll get into some exact customers, I think, is coming up, right? But if you can run more efficiently, right? So, and a lot of people, I think, are scared of technology because they think, oh, it's going to replace jobs, and it's just the wrong mindset. And it's not just a restaurant problem, guys. That is across the board. Big corporate businesses are sort of grappling with it. Technology comes, that means jobs are going to go. It really isn't, right? It just frees up those silly little jobs that you have to spend so much time on that are not productive to bottom line. They aren't making you more efficient. You're freeing up staff to do more of that kind of cool stuff, But let's just take a little example on sort of menu costings, right? So if you've got the right information at your disposal to look at top sellers, bottom sellers, right? So great, my bottom 5 sellers are this. Do they really deserve to be on the menu? Okay. Those were quite hard things to do in the old days, but with cloud solutions, you've got that stuff at your fingertips. Bottom sellers, should they get off my menu? Do they even belong there? Not only that, analyzing your top sellers. So great, I've got some top sellers, but are they making me money? Are they profitable? So, I mean, that kind of stuff's just so much easier to do now with technology, and that's would have taken people, doing recipe explosions and old school meat books. Who's still got a meat book here? Please tell me. That was a big thing in the old days, and that would be a chef's job. It would take them, a day to cost out a menu, where it's instantaneous now. Smart alerts, cheapest. The cost of your mince has gone up. Hey, your GP is below a certain expectation here, guys. This is what you need to look at. Either go and try find that item from a cheaper supplier, or start pushing the price up a little bit, right? So it's just tools that sort of help you manage that business, in a much better way. And the restaurant game is tough. I must say, restaurateurs, I've worked on, a fair amount of industries. I've got the most respect for restaurateurs. The resilience that they show, how hard it is to actually just keep your doors open is just ridiculous, So we had to sort of provide tools to help them, whether it be a sort of rewards program to reward their customers, trying to get them back in. I heard a really scary stat the other day that, a person can go into a restaurant, have the most incredible experience of their life as a first-time visitor. They've got a 20% chance of coming back to you. 20% chance of coming back. They come back a second time, all of a sudden you've got a 60% chance of them coming back. They come back a third time, they're irregular. They're done. But just because somebody comes to your restaurant for the first time and has an impeccable service is great, the food is great, you've got a 20% chance of them coming back. And, there's tech like reward solutions, right? Get the guy coming back, reward the guy, get him to come back to your restaurant. There's real sort of technology that solves these problems, eh? And restaurant operations are a challenge, eh? They really are a challenge, eh? So if your tech's not working for you and it's not sort of bringing feet back to your door, it's not sort of making you operate more efficiently, more profitably, you got the wrong tech in your restaurant, eh, for sure.
So it's all about that efficiency and building a loyal following and that relationship with the
Definitely.
customer.
100%, yeah.
So if we zoom out again, and this is for Kagiso again, so obviously all the smart technology is still up and coming, so we're still on the cusp of it now taking off. So how do you see this playing out in the next 5 years?
I think it's in line with what Sean was saying. The reality of it, it's going to look silly that we used to have standalone devices that aren't talking to a point of sale. We're going to look at that as backwards. And why did we ever do that? It's going to look silly that we used to spend hours in the morning, prepping for the day, hours in the evening, closing up our books for the day. That's all going to look silly and backwards. And the reality is, if you go into some markets like Amsterdam, you look at really even expensive cities, what you're finding is that what they're able to do with 3 people in a store is what
Scary,
8 or 9 people used to be able to do there. So what does that mean for you? As a restaurateur, it means that you'd be able to go back to focusing on the experience. As Sean said, that's part of what gets people to come back to your store. And you actually start being able to get more bang for your buck, which means growth. So now the constraints that you used to have with a single location no longer exist. Before, you needed to be physically present. You needed to keep on top of so many different things. But all that now is going to be at your fingertips. Some of the cool stuff we're doing to help restaurateurs also is, for example, helping them build their menus. All right. So imagine you have the core of your business idea or your restaurant idea, and now we're able to provide tools to enhance and augment your menu. In the future, we will be able to actually even help you and say that, hey, in this area, here's the type of cuisine, the type of ingredients that seem to be popular amongst the kind of customers that patron your restaurant as well. These are things that are it's not science fiction. It's not far away. People like Louis are building that capability for us. We've got the backbones in place to be able to deliver that and make that a reality now. So I think just adding to Sean's point, one of the key things that we don't price in as entrepreneurs is the cost of our time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And that complexity. And just because you're able to get it done doesn't mean you should be doing that. I think there's higher value work that you're going to be doing and your staff are going to be doing as well. We've seen this trend as well, even in a totally different industry like fast fashion. In fast fashion, you're able to see, you go to stores like a Zara and you see people pulling out stock from the back. There's nobody in the front, but somehow they know that I need to bring up 2 mediums to the front, right? As you're catching up, the replenishment happens. So as Lasaka, what we've also built in the retail space, and I'm really excited to see this coming into hospitality, is things like supplier payments. Right? So now we've done this in the informal space. So even in spazas, where people are able to use funds on their wallet, be able to, order stock. That's something that used to require you to close your shop and do that. But now we're able to use that same technology to connect suppliers in the restaurant space, for you to be able to use those funds and be able to make your orders, and hopefully very soon to make those orders intelligently. in
Yeah.
advance. Before you even know that you're running out of something, that order is placed for you within the parameters that you set it.
We
So
got that already, KG. We got that already. It's ready to rock,
that
eh?
was the new release.
Auto orders, yeah. Louis been doing some work. Eh? I think we're down to a little bit of time there. I just want to talk about some real customers. We're talking lots of fancy words at the moment and sort of, but you know, in the real world, let me give you some stuff that's happening right now. We've got customers using our stuff, right? So in the quick service environment, I don't know if any of you know Mod Cafe. That's in Joburg, right? These guys do not have cashiers behind counters. It's a quick service restaurant. They've got about 6 or 7 kiosks on the wall. Customers can navigate themselves, place their own orders, make their own payments, and their food just comes off the counter, right? They've got QR codes on the tables. If you want to sit down at a table, scan a QR code, all of a sudden the restaurant's menu opens up on their mobile phone. The guys can navigate the menu, place their own order, inject it straight into the POS. We've got external third-party apps injecting orders into the POS there. So, I mean, that's just in the quick service environment, how it's up and running right now. And then circling to a bit more of a sit-down sort of tradition, we've got Tempo. I don't know if you guys know Tempo. These guys have got 16 pay-at-table devices, right? So it just allows their waiters to stay on the floor. You know, it's nothing more frustrating than when you're waving your hand and, you know, it affects your bottom line. You know, if somebody might have had 6, in Louis' case, 6 black labels, but he had to wave every time, he's only going to have 5, right? If you just take that little 2 beers that could have been, if a waiter was there and he could have processed the order and he could have got it to him, scale that up, okay? You know, every single day, over every single week, over every single month, we're talking 10, 20, 30,000 Rand by the time you scale that up, just having somebody on the floor, permanently on the floor, at your disposal, placing orders, making payments, pushing it into the POS, and they don't have to run back and forth to the kitchen. Is my food ready? Run back to the POS to go and bring the orders through. So that's real stuff happening right now, guys. I just want to bring those to your attention.
No, that's very interesting. I just wanted to add to what you guys were saying about smart technology. My friend went to Japan in December and he ordered food and this robot came to his table, the robot waiter, with his order.
Yeah.
People have such social anxiety, they'd rather speak to a robot than another person.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, I mean, South Africa is quite different to that. So I don't know if we'll ever get to that level of.
But it's a valid thing. Hey, I think the consumer is largely dictating now what tech they want. Okay, do you know what I mean? They'll go to a restaurant because they know that it's got that specific type of tech, and you do get people that don't want to speak to humans. Sorry, KG, go for it. Yeah,
I think the reality, that's what we thought about kiosks, self-service kiosks.
yeah,
And now that's just a mainstay of the business.
yeah.
And I look forward to you building out our first service robot, Louis.
Yeah.
Challenge accepted. Those kiosks are great. I mean, if you go to KFC and you don't have to stand in the queue and you can just do it there, they work well.
Yeah.
So we are running out of time. We're going to wrap up the session. There's no time for questions.
Yeah. But please, guys, the stand. Hey, Lisa, what stand number are we? A7. We're upstairs, guys. At the exit or the entrance, please come past the stand. We've got sales reps there. They're very professional. They know their stuff. But they'll happily show you through all this tech we're talking about right now. Hey? So please pop past the stand, okay?
Yeah. And thanks to our guests, Kagiso and Sean, for sharing your insights and for speaking so candidly and openly about your experiences. Thank you very much.
Cool. Thank you, Mali. All right.
Thanks, guys.
Cool.